Dragon Ball is a long story about a lot of things, but what stuck with me most after my last reread was the many different student-mentor relationships, and how the series defines the positive and negatives of each one, and the progression they follow. Every arc involves Goku either training under a new master, searching for a new master, or being a master himself. So I want to take a look at how these themes are presented in the original run of the Dragon Ball manga, and there's only one proper place to start. Muten Roshi is our first example of a master figure, and I would argue that outside of some inappropriate antics, Roshi is Dragon Ball's paragon of the perfect mentor figure. Most of the lessons he imparts end up being reused and retold over the next 400 chapters, in ways I both anticipated and in ways I didn't even suspect. Obviously, a lot of the antagonists in early Dragon Ball are direct foils to Roshi, but I never guessed that Goku's shortcomings in the Cell games would be because he contradicted his old master's beliefs. Now, to summarize what Roshi taught Krillin and Goku into 3 points, it'd be when and why you should fight, how to live, and understand that there's always someone better than you. Roshi made it a point to teach his boys to do more than just fight. He wanted to teach them how to live properly, and that involves understanding math, learning how to read, developing a sense of justice, and learning how to enjoy each day as they come. He wants the strength he imparts to be used to expand his students' opportunities, so that they can run to the world and be prepared for whatever it can throw at them in pursuit of what they want. This is in direct contrast to the Crane School, who only wants to use their students as weapons for assassination, and neglects to teach them what 9-1 is. To teach his students humility, Roshi disguised himself as Jackie Chun in order to keep his students from earning the title Strongest Under the Heavens, because he believed that earning that title at such a young age would make them complacent or overconfident. And the title of Strongest is consistently used to describe the villains of Dragon Ball. After meeting the strongest human under the heavens in Roshi and the strongest assassin in the world in Tao Pai Pai, we meet the strongest in the heavens, the Kami and his counterpart. And then it turns out he's just an alien in a big universe, not much of a Kami at all. We meet supposedly the strongest race and their strongest warrior, but it turns out that there's an even stronger race who owns the whole universe, and among them is the strongest being in the universe. And then we meet a composite clone with the DNA of all of these fighters who believes himself perfect. And then we meet the badass warrior god who managed to beat that perfect being. And while I love that guy, you gotta admit he has a bit of an ego. The fact that we keep meeting the supposed strongest guy is intentional, not only to consistently portray this theme of humility, but to emphasize how much progress the cast has made. It's intentionally exaggerated and insane. There's always someone stronger than you, and that means you can always get stronger too. This is even reflected in the Super Saiyan power-ups. The first Super Saiyan transmission was an epic prophetic warrior, but at the end of the day, every Saiyan has the potential to do it. And if the galaxy's strongest and God aren't unreachable titles, then neither should a Super Saiyan. There's always room for improvement. Now, to take things back down to Earth, Goku met this really cool cat named Korin once upon a time. Korin doesn't stick around for long, but he does teach Goku that hard work is its own reward, and he connects Goku to the heavens above. Meeting the master of his master and to see that that master isn't even human expands Goku's worldview. Korin's tower is literally the connecting point to the heavenly lookout, and the tower will soon lead Goku to his next mentor. The most blatant foil to the very idea of a mentor is the Demon King Piccolo. The Demon King is long past his prime, and he seeks the Dragon Balls in order to restore his own power. All the children he creates are just a means to that end, while Roshi is the opposite, entrusting his techniques and his role to the next generation of fighters, who will eventually surpass the Demon King even after he regains his youth. And in his dying moments, he's forced to conform to Roshi's beliefs. If he's gonna get his revenge and rule the Earth, he has to do it through a proxy, which is how Piccolo Jr. is born. Jr., who I will henceforth call Piccolo for simplicity's sake, was created with a purpose. His creator's will was all he knew, so there was no room to be his own person, especially when everyone looks at him with a disdain for his creator's actions. Most of all Kami, his other half. Piccolo at this point is blindly following his creator's will. He has no desires that are his own, while Goku defies his latest mentor's, Kami's wishes, by refusing to kill Piccolo. To the end, he never stops treating the fight like another tournament match. As long as Piccolo doesn't break the rules, neither will he. And by extension, he's treating Piccolo like a fellow martial artist. This not only allows Piccolo to discover himself later and contemplate his own identity, but this also helps Kami forgive himself for his past mistakes. Tien also disavows his teachers from the Crane School. Goku, Piccolo, and Tien's arcs all reinforce this theme of outgrowing your teachers. Goku is now an adult, and he begins giving back to his mentors before moving on in search for his own students. One of the joys in reading Dragon Ball is seeing the cast grow from children to adults and parents. The fact that the story added Goku's progression towards becoming a teacher in his own right on top of that is pretty darn cool. But before Goku can start training his own son, someone else gets to him first. Piccolo and Gohan are both given heavy expectations by their parents. Piccolo was to inherit his past self's will and rule the world, and Gohan is going to spend the next 100 chapters getting pulled between his dad's wish to see him become a great fighter, and his mother's expectations to become a fine scholar. And down the road, it's Piccolo who will best empathize with Gohan when Goku nominates him to fight Cell. Piccolo knows better than anyone how suffocating a parent's expectations can be. More immediately, they both influence each other for the better. Piccolo helps Gohan grow more independent, and by creating a bond that belongs to neither Kami or the Demon King, Piccolo begins developing desires of his own. Goku and King Kai's dynamic isn't terribly interesting from a character perspective, but seeing how Goku is pretty much a fully formed adult, there's not much room for major changes. What is interesting is that at this point when Dragon Ball has firmly established its main themes, that King Kai teaches Goku 2 techniques that literalize a core message of Dragon Ball. If there's a problem you can't solve yourself or an opponent too strong to beat, you have 2 options: surpass your own limits or ask for help. It's interesting that the Kaioken eventually becomes irrelevant because for individuals there's always a new ceiling to break, but the Genki Dama arguably remains Goku's greatest technique for the rest of the franchise. Because cooperation and teamwork literally can't be power crept, which is going to be important to keep in mind as Goku looks for his successors later. For a time, he wants to place all of his hopes into one perfect warrior, but when that proves to be flawed, he finds new students and teaches them how to work in tandem. The Frieza saga is easily the one with the least to do with the theme of mentoring. Goku does all his training himself and everyone else is getting power-ups through means other than training. The arc largely focuses on the nature versus nurture theme, while Goku, Vegeta, and Piccolo are defining themselves through their lineage and how it affects them. But for our purposes, this arc does give Goku the definitive role of the strongest both in the universe and in this generation of fighters, which is how he'll be treated throughout the Android saga. And to fully understand that, we've got to talk about the jobbers. Vegeta and Trunks are the 2 most important jobbers in the Android saga. Their teacher-student relationship is flawed from the outset, and that doesn't change throughout the arc, even when they're both far and away the strongest Z fighters. Trunks grew up without a father. Gohan trained him for a time, but that didn't last. Vegeta could have filled that void in Trunks' life, but Vegeta's a prick. He never cared for anyone but himself. The only affection he has for Trunks is the slight sense of pride in knowing that his biological offspring is powerful. Vegeta didn't train Trunks properly because he never had a real interest in Trunks' development. All he was interested in was being number 1, and ironically, Trunks shows a ton of conceit and pride himself, confident in his new form while unaware of the obvious flaws that any experienced fighter could have pointed out. Vegeta's experience could have aided Trunks, but that lack of communication between them limited their growth. Later in the Buu saga, we see Vegeta raising present Trunks to be the best thing that ever happened to him. It's what made him want to redeem himself and become a kinda okay-ish person. It's also apparent that this Trunks is progressing much faster than the future Trunks, because Vegeta is finally giving his son the attention he deserves. It's even implied Vegeta thinks he can't surpass Gohan, but that he believes his son might. Getting back to the Android saga, Vegeta is contrasted with Goku, who went out of his way to help Gohan catch up before focusing on himself. After all, the stronger Gohan becomes, the better a sparring partner he'll make. But while Goku was a far better teacher than Vegeta, he was not perfect. Goku and Chi-Chi both put high expectations on Gohan in very different ways. Gohan wants to be a scholar, so Chi-Chi's determination to make him one isn't unwelcome, only when it interferes with other parts of Gohan's life. And Goku found his first candidate for a successor in Gohan. Naturally, being both his son and a powerful fighter made him a shoo-in for the role. And even as Gohan became more powerful than his father, he couldn't see that himself. Gohan admires his dad so much that he couldn't imagine that he was ever stronger than him, even when the reality was shown to him twice. Goku, however, saw something special in Gohan, and he's validated by the outcome of the Cell fight. Gohan was stronger than him, and he had the potential to become stronger still. Cell represents the last generation of fighters. He's literally an amalgamation of their DNA and techniques. But the only person whose DNA is missing in Cell is the young Gohan. So the climax is set up for Goku to pass on the torch and for Gohan to surpass the old generation by defeating this symbol of the old. But Goku projects too much of himself onto Gohan. He fails to see that his son doesn't want to push himself and become stronger for its own sake. He doesn't have that passion for battle that Goku does. Putting his faith in Gohan wasn't a mistake. Gohan did have that greatness in him. But giving Cell a senzu bean and trying to push Gohan like that was a mistake. Gohan even falls into one of the most common pitfalls for powerful characters. He grew arrogant. Roshi warned that if a child earned the title strongest, it'd go straight to their head. And that's exactly what happens to Gohan after Goku tells him that he's the strongest person on the planet and that only he can defeat Cell. The arc that you should remember most while reading the Cell games is the Demon King Piccolo arc. The president and the narrator both mention it, inviting the comparison. And similarly to the Cell games, a mentor dies and leaves the task of saving the world to their student. But Roshi only does this after doing everything he can to stop the Demon King. To understand why Gohan didn't become the perfect warrior, we need to see why he wanted to be a scholar. It goes back again to one of Roshi's teachings. Roshi wanted to teach Goku and Krillin about all matters of subjects. Because he didn't want to determine how they choose to live their lives, he simply wanted to give them what wisdom and power he could. And to a degree, Goku wants to teach his son how to live, not dictate how he should live. But unconsciously or not, he was controlling Gohan's life. If Gohan wants to only be just strong enough to protect his loved ones, that's a fine use for the martial arts. It just means Goku's perfect successor is someone else. If Cell is a symbol for the past generation of fighters, then it's notable that Gohan doesn't defeat him alone. It's only when the young are supported by the old that they collectively surpass themselves, and this is elaborated upon in the Buu Saga. But the first student-teacher relationship we see in the Buu Saga is actually pretty easy to forget. What's probably the most interesting bit of characterization for Chi-Chi is her relationship with Goten. After pushing so hard for Gohan to be a scholar, she personally teaches Goten how to fight. A clear reason is never stated, at least not in the manga. My guess is that in addition to missing Goku and seeing so much of him in Goten, she also sees that Goten wants to learn how to fight more than anything. Remember, Gohan wanted to be a scholar, so if Goten wants to be a warrior, she'll support him in that. After seeing Cell defeated by a group effort, Goku understands that that's the best way to ensure the Earth's survival. Goku claims that he wants to give the next generation as many tools as possible so that he can rest in peace and leave things to them. So he moves his sights to Goten and Trunks and teaches them about fusion. If the Genki Dama wasn't proof that teamwork can't be power crept, then fusion most certainly is. Two fighters becoming far more than the sum of their parts. But self-improvement is also highlighted by Goku achieving Super Saiyan 3 and Gohan unlocking his potential. Goku training multiple people this arc and using the Spirit Bomb as the finisher is an omission that no one person is responsible for the safety of the Earth. But ultimately, Goku loves the sport of it all. Ideally, his fights will remain friendly competition and good fair 1v1s. That's why it's still Goku's wish to have the perfect student to teach, one who shares his passion for combat and self-improvement. This manga is named after the wish-granting Dragon Balls, and yet Goku was always content not to make a wish for himself, always using the Dragon Balls on behalf of others, until he wishes for Buu to return one day and fight him again, without dragging the fate of the world into it. It's fitting that this would be Goku's last and only wish, not just because fighting Buu would be great because Buu is very strong and he loves fighting strong guys, but because the character that Buu in all of his forms is most similar to is Goku. Think about it. A powerful childlike being is given the task to destroy planets at birth, and both grow to love the planet they were sent to destroy, in part because a kind old master took them in and taught them how to channel their aggression through the martial arts and healthy competition, aided by a little bit of amnesia. I couldn't think of a more fitting place for Goku's character to end than in doing what his grandfather Gohan did for him. Oob doesn't get much time in the original manga, but he is the ideal student for Goku. He loves to meet strong people, and if he's anything like his old evil self, he loves a good fight. The other Z fighters will always be around to help save the day, but Goku can finally focus on what he's passionate about, surpassing himself and teaching others to do the same. Thank you all for watching. At the time of recording, the creator of Dragon Ball, Akira Toriyama, recently passed away, and it spurred me into reading his entire bibliography, which led to the creation of this video. There was a time that Dragon Ball was my favorite franchise ever, and I was utterly obsessed with it. I want this channel to be a place to share my appreciation for these types of work, so it ultimately couldn't be complete without a good Dragon Ball video. I always felt I had a grasp on the broad strokes of the story, and my reread more so helped me see smaller details I never appreciated before. So if you want to see me and a buddy of mine talk about those details in depth and reminisce about the original Dragon Ball, there's a video on my side channel for you to watch. Thanks again for watching, and rest in peace, Toriyama Sensei. I don't know how different a person I'd be if Dragon Ball didn't exist.